All right. Good morning, everyone. We're going to give just a couple more minutes for folks to trickle in, but appreciate you joining, everyone. If you want to take a moment while we're waiting to rename yourself, if your actual name is not popping up on your Zoom call, you can put your name, name of your farm if you'd like to share, and your pronouns. That would be great. Love to know how the weather is today, wherever you're at, if you want to share. My dog just walked across my charging cord. All right. Clay, should we rock and roll?
Let's do it. Yeah.
Okay. We're gonna hit the ground running here. Good morning, everyone. Just again, take a moment to rename yourself if you haven't done that already. You'll see three little dots on the upper right corner of your image. You can use that to put your name in there, name of your farm, and your pronouns if you'd like to share that. Clay just dropped the community agreements down in the chat, so you can review those real quick like. And I am Beth Robinette. I'm your co-host today, only host of the Lowdown here at the Good Meat Project. The Good Meat Project is a nonprofit with the mission to catalyze marketplace innovation, connection, and education across the meat supply chain in order to increase economic viability and ecological impact of livestock farmers who invest in healthy land, animals, and people. As part of our Farmers and Ranchers Marketing Innovation Network, that's Farmin for you guys playing along at home, we offer the Lowdown to farmers and ranchers as a way to strengthen your marketing efforts and to explore logistical challenges that you might be facing. Each month we have a specific theme. This month's theme is about developing your brand, and we are joined today by Sean Lenihan of Honest Bison, who is going to share some of his tips and tricks for building an online brand, and probably some other nuggets of wisdom about how to run an online-based frozen meat distribution company, which I'm sure is not the simplest thing on earth to achieve. We're gonna save about 15 minutes at the end of our conversation today for questions and answers. Also, feel free to pop questions in the chat as we go along, and be sure to tag along after our call if you'd like to hang around. We'll be joined with Tim Joseph of Maple Hill Creamery. If you've met him, you love him. He's an incredible resource to our community, so generous with his time, and knows a little bit about just about everything. So he'll be joining us for an hour after this call to just answer any other questions that bubble up, thoughts. If you want to talk to him about something totally random, he'll probably be happy to do that too. And if you want to just put your earbuds in, go back to feeding cows or whatever you got to do and listen along, no pressure. That second hour is a very casual conversation. All right. I think without further ado, we will go ahead and turn the mic over to Sean. Sean, thank you so much for joining us today. Could you start off by just telling us a little bit about what Honest Bison does, like a little bit of background, and kind of how you would describe your brand?
Great. Thank you. Thank you for having me, and thank you for everyone at the Good Meat Project for all the work that you're doing. I've been a supporter and will continue to be as much. Super excited to contribute. So the Honest Bison, we are a brand that started out with 100% grass-fed bison, and subsequently, due to consumer demand and the opportunity, became, I think, what is now being called an aggregator of other high-quality meats with standards that they have to meet, and then getting them to the customer through our direct-to-consumer website. So we sell 100% grass-fed bison that have many third-party certifications that back up our claims. We also have elk, Rocky Mountain elk that is raised here in the United States. We have white-tailed deer that we label as venison, also raised here in the United States. We also work with Richard's Regenerative beef out of California, as they have the standards. We share standards in land to market and American grass-fed. And we also work with 100% grass-fed lamb rancher. And so all of those are products that are available on our website. We ship to all 50 states. And my team and me specifically came from a marketing background. Prior to 2012, I had a long career in branding and building programs for automotive companies, consumer electronic companies, video game companies, high-end athletic shoes, all big premium brands that usually over-delivered on their promises. And so having worked in that space at a pretty high level, I chose to do something better for the world than make rich companies richer on stuff you may or may not need. And so I felt compelled to contribute in a positive way to the world in creating a brand in the meat space that people could trust, since that was a big problem and maybe continues to be a big problem.
Can I back?
Opportunity.
I'm going to ask a more like baby question, which is like, what is a brand? What does that even mean?
Excellent
I know
question.
Cattle rancher, what I think of when I think of a brand, but obviously you're talking about something else.
We are not talking about the heated piece of steel that you stick on the back of an animal. So a brand in its most basic form is a promise. And that it's a promise to whoever's consuming or interacting or engaging with the brand. That includes reputation, right? So any brand is it's going to have a product or service, right? And its performance in delivering that product or service is evaluated, it builds the reputation, and then that reputation grows. Of course, it can be negative, positive, somewhere in between. The brands have life cycles, right? Apple is a brand. It has a life cycle. It's at a different stage in its life cycle than Sears or JCPenney, right? So those, the cycles of things, the cycles of business, brands have those too, but in its most basic form, it's a promise. So I set out to create a meat brand that delivered on the promise of trust. And so there's lots of different ways that companies can build trust and do build trust. And we chose to build that trust with quality, which then, of course, means different, like quality means different things to different people. Our main focus, because again, this is back to the a little bit more of the origin story. At the time when I started this company, our nation was in a big conversation about healthcare and the cost of healthcare and the health of the citizens of the United States, and how we could be a healthier, physiologically healthier nation. And so I went down the rabbit hole of some of that science, and quickly learned that meat does have an exceptional nutritional value. However, there are ways in which it is being delivered to the market that make it unhealthy and potentially worse, whether it's inhumane, whether it's extractive in its ecological outcomes. So I set out to understand what quality should be and what quality meant to the honest bison, and then what that promise was for the customers or consumers that I wanted to serve. And one of the first things that I believed was most important was from the nutritional value. What animal delivers the highest nutritional value? Bison has an exceptional nutrition profile. I also didn't want to be in a commodity and compete against a commodity, so I chose the niche of bison. I then later learned that 100% grass-fed can and usually has a higher nutritional profile than feedlot bison. So that's the road that we went down. And so building the trust upon, okay, this is the most nutritional meat. This was raised humanely. This was later, not long, maybe a year or two afterwards. Whoa, this can be regenerative in nature. And then ultimately fair, right? We were paying fair prices to the ranchers. We weren't exploiting the animals. We weren't exploiting processing labor. Everybody was getting paid in a fair and economical way, so that there wasn't exploitation in the supply chain, which can happen too. So all of that put together landed on some extremely high standards. So we're now in a niche of a niche, maybe of another niche. And that led to then, well, who's going to buy this, right? And so the brand then, being consumer focused, it had to be online and in a direct to consumer focused. There, in my niche, there isn't enough qualified product to serve big CPGs or big restaurant chains in a meaningful way. So getting onto the leading edge of people who are seeking out these special attributes was where we went.
Yeah, I want to just jump in with another question. So did you did you kind of did like the product or the customer come first? It sounds like you really sort of wanted to just jump into somewhere along Bison, or were you thinking more like about how to, like, who your customers were and what they would want?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you how it happened. I was working at an ad agency. Our project was to win a client. The client was Zico coconut water. The value proposition was coconut water is a natural, essentially electrolyte drink, or hydration drink that didn't include all the chemicals in Gatorade. It was also 4 times as expensive. So my job in that team at the agency to win the account was go find the consumers who are buying this and what other segments also want this. So I was in the deep end of the research. I, at the same time, was on my own journey of a lifelong athlete. I was early 40s. So I was like, hey, what can I do to be better? Wait, this is like Gatorade isn't good for me. What else isn't good for me that the marketers told me, the brands promised, that it didn't always deliver. So it did really come from the consumer side of finding who does this, what do they want. And so if you think back, 2012, 2013, 14, the food movement, or the whole food movement, is starting to change. Whole Foods is going way up. They're starting to see some brands that are taking off. Epic started at that time. So I was in a position to see the trends and really like what do the consumers want, and then also knowing, oh wait, none of this stuff is out here. So I read a book called It Starts With Food by Dallas and Melissa Hartwig. She doesn't go by that name, but it essentially created the Whole 30. And so on that list, and I'm doing the Whole 30, cutting out sugar, cutting out refined processed goods, and it was working. And on that list was Bison. Like, let's try Bison. I've never done that. I go down the rabbit hole. You start digging up what Bison could do. Higher in protein, great cholesterol profile, high in iron. It tastes amazing, which was different than the perception of, wait, if I got to eat healthy, then I don't want to eat only kale, right? That's lame.
Right.
Right. It's like, stop.
Spinach.
So for me, the light bulb was like, wait, I can eat that awesome ribeye and I'm doing better for myself, for the land. Like all of a sudden things started coming that way. So it really started with the consumer, healthier people. Bison fit the niche that I could make an impact on.
Mm-hmm. And so what would you say like really helps a company build a strong brand? I mean, I'm hearing you say that it's really about this like collection of feelings that people have about a company. So how do you go about communicating it?
Yeah.
First of all, how do you identify like what you want your customers to feel, and then how do you actually communicate those things?
Yeah, great questions. And I did my homework a little bit here. So some of those keys, at least this is the way we approached it. And I want to distinguish before I dive in, is like if you just pull up how to market something, right? It's like, what is the 4 Ps: product, price, place,
Promotion,
right? Okay, right. That's an old school way that still is a relevant tactic. Everybody still has to do those things, but that's not going to build a trusted brand. So, or at least it'll be a different type of trusted brand. So the brands that I used to work with, Lexus, Beats by Dre, Aston Martin, Toyota, Xbox, Activision, all those are things that are aspirational. They're expensive, they're premium, they over deliver, they create a great experience, and they charge a lot for their product or service. So I got to learn how to communicate what those brands were trying to do, and they're some of the most powerful, well-respected brands out there, aspirational brands. I didn't see that in food. So the connection was like, wait, how do you take that playbook and apply it to something more important in the world? And so I wanted, so on the pain point side, like what's wrong with food, and specifically what's wrong with meat? Well, there's no trust. People they can't trust. They don't know where it came from, who made it, what it was fed, how it was treated, what kind of extractive, whether it was on the land, the natural resources, or the human resources of it. And typically, if you did dive into it, you were going to find some really bad stuff. So I wanted a brand to build trust. And so for me, that's the number one key. And then, in the way I'll list this thing, is essentially 6 things, starting with trust is what's going to build a strong brand. For instance, if you trust when you buy a Ford F-150 that thing's going to work for a long time, and because there's a million of them every year, right? So how do you get that trust in a meat company? Well, for us, we looked at some of the problems and the pain points, and that lack of transparency or the opaqueness was everywhere in the food system or the meat system, unless you were buying from your neighbor, right? And it was like, no, I saw the animal the whole time, right? You got to visit it. That's not scalable, at least to the people on the coast. So transparency is a big thing. Next, I would say authenticity. We were going to put our faces of my team, the processors, the ranchers. We were going to tell everybody where, and we do tell everybody where the animals come from. So who, where, why, and then developing a brand voice. In our communications, we don't talk like in a sterile or cold way. We want to connect on an emotional level, as that we too want to eat and help or have the same values as our customers. Fourth part about building the brand, for us, beautiful visuals. Since we're delivering stuff that you eat, people eat with their eyes first, right? I'm going to look at it. Oh, that looks delicious. Okay. Start salivating. Oh, that doesn't look appetizing. I'm going to pass. So for us, we knew that to educate a consumer on probably a new product that they haven't had before, learn about it, that visual had to be really great. So we have spent a ton of money on our food photography. All of the food photography on our website is our product, paid for by ourselves, licensed ourselves, etc. So we don't use any stock photos because that fits into the authenticity as well as how we want the photos to look. So that's another part of building our brand. Our brand also has focus, that we are there to serve direct to consumer. We're not in restaurants. We're not in grocery stores, partially due to just bandwidth and available supply. But it was also, I didn't know how to serve those clients very well. Do have some ingredient clients that buy trim, bones, and some of the byproducts, but that's helped to monetize the entire carcass. And then lastly, like basically the foundation of how to build a strong brand. Whatever type of brand you're going to build, it has to be functional, meaning you got to communicate really well. For us, communications include our website, our emails, our customer service, our packaging, our shipping. So on the very fundamental, foundational sense, we got to deliver whatever the customer orders. So that reputation is the foundation that you can build everything else on. So anyway, those are my 6 things: trust, transparency, authenticity, our beautiful aesthetic, focus, and then functionality.
And how does that translate to your budget, like your marketing budget? Like you mentioned that you spend, that you've invested a lot on making sure that you have great photography to represent your product. I'm imagining you also have like some paid advertising that you engage in. I'm guessing you also have some like customer retention work that needs resources allocated to it. So kind of give me the breakdown of how, like, you don't have to give me specific dollar figures, but how does the cookie crumble amongst all those little buckets?
Yeah, it's so a lot of it has been trial and error. Coming from a background of event production, I could take a scope and back it out. Like, okay, if I have $10, I'll build a scope and I'll spend $7, and everything will be great. Make sure I do what we promised. The digital advertising is far more complex because it is a moving target. What worked last year, what worked 5 years ago, won't necessarily work now. And what works for one customer segment won't work for another customer segment. What works for a company shipping to all 50 states won't work, nor should it work for somebody who just wants to draw a 100-mile radius around where the meat comes from. So back to your question, we have experimented with Google ads, Facebook and Instagram. We're spending ads on Pinterest. We're spending money on emails, we're spending money on recipe development and food photography. So how do we approach this? So strategically, there are marketing funnels. And how did somebody go from unaware of the Honest Bison to becoming aware? Facebook, Instagram, and Pinterest are all at the top of our funnel, where we're going to take somebody from unaware to aware. And then as we bring them down through incentives, spending money on coupons and tracking and attribution, we're going to then get them to sign up for our newsletter. Then emails become a form of communication. we are using the digital tools to track and then target. So if you go to our website, you sign up for the for the newsletter, and then you go to ESPN or other websites through the Google's ad network, you might get retargeted, and those are very effective. We spend money on those, and subsequently, we farther down the funnel is where we're take people through an email sequence. We've also had success with SMS marketing. And then they can get into coupons, loyalty programs, subscriptions, etc. It's hard to say like how I break it down because like we're changing it. We're changing it on the season, on when we spend. We'll spend more as everybody else does in the fourth quarter. And then we'll pull back in the slow times of the year. Or if we sell out of something, we're not going to advertise things. So I don't know how to better answer that question. Is like what gets like the ratios. It's no secret. Email is the most valuable. If I was a different company and I was regional and I didn't have the supply or the bandwidth or the working capital to go direct to consumer, I would regionally target the ads and then ultimately try and capture people in my region, get their emails, so I didn't have to do paid ads or could do less paid ads. I have to do a lot of paid ads. It's always with the long-term thing of filling up the funnel. Companies like ButcherBox or Snake River may have to do less because they've filled up, like they may have 500,000 or they could have 1 million emails. I have tens of thousands, not 500,000. So right. it's like email is the most valuable.
Yeah, and there's a question from Michelle here in the chat, which I'll just pop in right now because it's relevant. She asked, what platform do you find the highest ROI or customer acquisition when running online ads?
So that's been a moving target as well. Some months Google crushes it, other months, and we think Facebook is done. I don't want to be a part of their thing, but then Facebook will work. So it's moved around quite a bit. Pinterest we started this year. We knew that would make sense. Again, we're putting recipes on there with beautiful photography, kind of makes sense. We've noticed that has a longer term ROI. So we started spending money and putting more assets on in the summertime. Nobody. Guess what's happening? Why? Because they were saving recipes for the fourth quarter when everybody buys meat. So as far as platforms go, it's really you got to go back to where it is in the funnel. Facebook and Instagram are above the funnel, so it's not going to have as higher conversion rate as Bison Meat Near Me is going to have a higher conversion rate because the person already knows, hey, I just need bison. Who am I going to buy it from? Where somebody may not have even been considering bison meat if they're learning about it on Instagram. So you should get, just by nature of the funnel, you should get a higher conversion rate on Google Ads on things like grass-fed lamb near me, like things like that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Sounds like the lesson there is to just stay really agile in terms of your strategy, and maybe you could tell me a little bit about like what that feedback loop looks like to you. Are you guys looking at those results of your ad dollars like on a monthly basis, and then kind of just a response to what you're seeing there?
Yeah, it's weekly. We're spending money every day. So, well, rephrase the question again, because is this on the KPIs, what we're tracking?
Yeah, I'm just curious, like kind of like how you assess, like, okay, say you're looking each week at how you spent your ad dollars, and then you're making decisions about what mix to
Yep.
spend this week. So how do you make those decisions? It's just sort of in response to what seems to be, I mean, is it like going to Vegas and you just feel when the roulette table's hot, or yeah, how do you do it?
Unfortunately, yes. It's more that than a sophisticated skill set or Excel sheet. The like big companies that are spending tens of thousands of dollars a day do have that ability to, like, where there's truly somebody at the dashboard dialing it. I pay an ad buyer who's a specialist on Google and Meta ad buying and Pinterest to monitor it. And because here's what's fascinating was sometimes it works really well. The bidding mechanism of keywords and targeting audiences, the prices change. So it's dynamic pricing. And the platforms are changing the pricing and the demand all the time without the buyers actually knowing, well, why are you changing or when is it changing? So when we see something start to work, we will tick up the spend. When we see it not working, we dial it back. But again, I'm not playing with big numbers either. I'm trying to use a sophisticated tool to grow, or sophisticated talent in this case. So, but the good news on that for anybody who's headed in this direction or started in this direction, the artificial intelligence and the tools that are coming from this, and I think with the way Google and Facebook are having to, like, wait, you have to deliver more value, especially in our space, it'd be fine. So it is an active thing. It's also something you can screw up. You could screw it up and lose all your money. Like back to your Vegas analogy. So
yeah, it's kind of scary. Could you give me, like, I mean, I don't know if you're comfortable sharing this information, but could you give me like a ballpark of what your weekly spend on advertisement is?
I don't have a problem sharing that. I'm spending anywhere from in our off season, it's like $5,000. I'm gonna tick that up for the holiday season. In slow parts of August and February, when people aren't buying anything online, will be less. And so we'll also mix that. So for instance, Facebook and Instagram are top of the funnel, and Google isn't. It's farther down the funnel. So I may shift, like, dial way back on Instagram or Facebook and Instagram. Like we had it down to like a few $100s per week, because we knew, like, okay, in August people are on vacation, in February nobody has any money, so we're not going to spend that. But we may keep the Google stuff algorithm going. In the fourth quarter, we'll jump in on Facebook and spend more money to reach more people.
And how affordable is it to have to, like, hire someone to manage this for you? Are there people that, like, do this on a small scale for a small business?
There are one firm which may be known to this crowd is Kitchen Table Consultants and Taste Profit Marketing. They have some really affordable rates. I work with them on several other things. They are not my media buyers. I have, for me, an expensive media buyer. But I don't have, I know whatever I go to will be massively less. And so I'm cautious of, like, maybe downgrading the talent buyer will cost me too much in sales.
Yeah, interesting. So true. I mean,
actually, I think the rates, I think sometimes you can get somebody to help you for like $500-600 a month. I'm paying close to $2,000 a month.
Right.
So it's a big span. So that's the other thing is like on the whole business, you need to be able to sell like $1 million online to do that. So that's where if it's a small operation, like, listen, I got 50 head, 50 carcasses I need to go through. Okay, you're in the DIY mode of, okay, where am I shipping it to? Emails, right? Things like that. Regional targeted advertising that are much more practical. Google does have resources that if you're going to buy ads from them, they will help you. Facebook as well.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of comes with the program too.
Yeah, I sure appreciate getting into kind of some of the sticky bits of that. I'm going to shift gears just a little bit in our remaining time. I wonder if you can talk a little more about, I mean, you talked a little about who your customers were, you know, that you've done a bit of customer research, but how would you describe your customer segments, and do you like differentiate your messaging to those different segments, or do you kind of have like one cohesive brand around trust that you're
Well, so
putting
here's
in?
what's interesting, and this would be applicable to all of us who are taking a whole animal that has different parts that different customers want those different parts. So if you jump on my website right now, the first thing you're going to see is a super sexy tomahawk ribeye. That's catering to one segment of my audience that is entertaining guests. They want a typically a steak, or they want some meat that has a story, is sexy and delicious and expensive, that they can usually share or indulge in. So that also fits with special occasions. So that's one segment of the audience. There's another segment of the audience where they're committed to the nutritional value. They're feeding their family. And so they're going to get ground roast and steaks. And that's their commitment to healthy, humane, and regenerative meat proteins. There are, because I chose to utilize as much of the carcass as possible. In bison, I'm buying the entire carcass. The other species, I'm not. The bones, the offal, that's another audience where typically it's a consumer who's looking to fuel themselves for performance. They're looking to eat in an autoimmune protocol, whereas they might be allergic or their body doesn't extract the nutritional value that bison does, or humanely raised meat. So that's a niche of a niche of a niche of a niche, where people are buying the ground organ blends, they're buying the hearts, the livers, they're buying marrow bones. So those people are coming to us because of our certifications, the way we're doing it, but also because where the heck do I get elk liver? There's not many websites that have elk liver.
Right. Kind of niche.
Right. So that's those are the broad strokes of the audiences we serve. We do have our emails segmented out. We use a service, Klaviyo. It too is a highly sophisticated tool, but I think it is. I'm not the one who runs it, but you can get really geeky and super targeted with, like, if I wanted to run a sale or promote that we're going to have a certain product coming back in stock, I can, to every single person that bought bison marrow bones, I can send them an email. So that's a tool in which we serve those different segments.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if there's we have a few minutes left before we open it up to the audience. I'm wondering if there's any other just like insight or knowledge about frozen meat distribution, carcass balance, and anything we could glean from what you've learned in your 10
yeah,
plus.
And it's a great question, because I know that the audience that Good Meat Project serves is pretty diverse. And so one thing to keep in mind about what I've shared about how I'm positioning myself, what I'm investing, spending a lot of money, I'm trying to reach a national audience because where I live or where I'm going to distribute going forward, there's probably not enough customers to buy 100% grass-fed bison and Rocky Mountain elk and white-tailed deer. So I had to enlarge my service region to fit the number of customers I want to scale to. So if you have grass-fed beef or pastured pork or grass-fed lamb or whatever, understanding how much you're trying to sell, what your current scale is at, where you want to go, and then understanding that logistics is a massive portion of what goes into the cost of the cut of meat and delivering it. So my largest challenge is taking the order. Like, okay, so we built a website, we built a brand, we have some products, and they put their credit card in on our website and we took their money. The biggest challenge we've had, and others have this too, is then how do you affordably get the box of meat of this wonderful product that we've worked so hard to get to them? How do you get it there successfully and affordably? People do not want to pay for shipping. So it's a puzzle.
Yeah, we're conditioned to not, and shipping meat is very expensive.
It's very expensive. So like this is how I would take this and give advice to my 2012 self of, hey, this is your largest challenge. It's the highest variable, and it can sink your company. There's I would say there's 90%, 9 out of 10 ways to go bankrupt doing the shipping wrong, and there's probably only 1 or 2 ways in which you can successfully do it profitably. So this is where, like in holistic management, they teach us, right? Start with the end, like how many animals are you going to have, what profit do you need to make, right, to pay yourself, and then only spend X, right? Back to my event budget of I have $10 to spend, or I have $10 from the client of revenue. I'm going to spend $7. So I would have $3 left at the end. So that understanding that what you're going to have to spend in transportation really should then dictate of, okay, that's how much you can spend on the rest of your stuff. And then really who can you serve, which then will dictate your marketing budget. Or then like not just the budget, but who you're marketing to, where you're marketing, how you're marketing. Do people need free shipping? Like if you live in Idaho Falls, that's a different net income audience than Seattle, the highest concentration of millionaires in the country, or San Francisco, or Los Angeles, or New York. So when setting up a direct-to-consumer, it's super important to then understand what your capabilities are and what those costs are. If you're in the middle of the country, or if you're in Camas, Washington, and somebody has awesome grass-fed lamb, you're not probably going to get to serve the East Coast, even though you might have the best thing in the country. So that being said, I work with Umpqua Valley Lamb. They're in Southern Oregon, regionally distributed. It is amazing lamb. There's no way that they could serve the entire country unless they supplied me. So we have a great partnership.
Right. Yeah. No, there is definitely a reason why the middleman exists.
Right. Yeah. If I can do one thing on this call, is like, hey, all middlemen aren't like hey, I need to cut the middleman out. Like, well, there is some value delivered there. And Umpqua Valley Lamb is one of the ones who are like, hey, Sean, they've gotten customers that I've delivered their meat to, and they reach out, I was like, hey, you're doing an amazing job. We love your lamb. Never had anything like it. Umpqua Valley Lamb says, good job, Sean.
Yeah, it's great. Okay, I want to ask you one more question before we open it up, see if anyone else has their you've thrown a ton of information at us over the last 45 minutes. I have an MBA and I'm scared. So if one was going to try to just, everyone on this call, has a million things to do in their day, and if you were just trying to figure out like how do I figure out what one branding or marketing activity I could do to help improve my business? Do you have an idea of like how someone could go about just like figuring out where to start?
What's the about a brand or selling or targeting a customer?
How about a brand?
Right. So we'll go all the way back to the promise. So you got to communicate the promise, right? You got to communicate the brand. There's a whole bunch of different ways to build a website now that are way cheaper than the way I did it. So building a website that tells your story, and don't hold back. Like, put pictures of you and your family and the animals and the land. Make them as awesome photos as you can afford. That's one thing. When I started the business, there was not a lot of beautiful food photography on direct-to-consumer websites. Now it's everywhere. Google image that stuff and like, okay, it's totally different now. I have felt that. So being putting your brand, right? If it's whatever ranch, right? Here's the family thing. Be authentic and transparent and put it out there on the World Wide Web as a website. And then the next step would be start to share on social media. So then you are validated with being out there, searchable and engage with on the social media channels. And then that leads up to, well, who wants what I got? Now you're in the arena, but you can't get in the arena until you put your name out there and you show people what you stand for, what you do, right? What you believe in, what your values are. Way more above than, hey, I got a quarter cow for sale. Like, okay, so where are you from? What do you believe in? What's special about it?
It's about like what is the value proposition of your product, like not just like the physical product, but also all of the other attributes that you might have about like how it was raised. And then secure yourself some sort of internet presence, and then get yourself on the social medias, Instagram and Facebook. Are you on, what is it, Thread X?
Oh, Threads. I pushed the button. I haven't posted anything on Threads yet. Our social, yeah, I've put a lot out there, but like, we have weaknesses. Our social media presence is, I would say, weak right now. We did a lot of work in the beginning, the first years, and it returned, but it's expensive to create the content the way we were creating it. So we've slowed down. Also bandwidth, like, I got to figure out a better fulfillment system. I need a new processor, right? So we are small, and so we've had to allocate our resources on the infrastructure as opposed to spending on social media. But I see people doing it, I would say, more amateur style, which is not a bad thing. It's a great thing in that it's perceived as way more authentic.
Mm-hmm.
And so that authenticity, I see ranchers crushing it. Like, it's beautiful work in not the polish that I'm used to. So that's something that I need to get better at is just run with it. So I would say, like, all those it's way easier now than it was, and it's probably going to get easier. So that should alleviate some fears or hesitancy to jump in. People want to buy direct. They don't trust the machine or the industry. So be less machine and be more human, and it'll work.
Right. Man,
You'll
what
attract it.
for this topic and for all things in life. Thank you so much, Sean. Do we have any questions from our courageous audience? Feel free to pop them in the chat, or if you just want to turn your camera on and show your beautiful face and share your lovely voice, we'd love to hear your questions in real time too.
This is Tim here, lurking. I apologize, Sean.
Hi, Tim.
My major technical issues today, multiple. So I just want to say, beautiful, super helpful information, beautiful website, beautiful brand, and just confirm. I think you talked about imagery on your website and stuff, and you did it from a very professional marketing angle, which, when we started Maple Hill, we didn't have any of that, and just my wife was a great photographer, and just by accident really confirmed what you've said, and I always encourage people who are trying to direct market is people see through stock media so quickly. I don't know what it is about our brains, but when you're looking at something that it's real and unique very often. And early on, our imagery, and still today, the photo of the cow on the carton versus, a cartoony cow or whatever, or website is so important, and it's so easy and accessible for everyone that's on this call. It's like just be yourselves and and let your landscape speak in all of those authentic ways through imagery can get you so far compared to the big, behemoths that, hire photographers to go out and create the perfect shot, et cetera. Like, just be who you are. That's what people want. And I think that's super accessible to everybody, I guess, is why I wanted to reiterate, to sort of bring it to something that, you don't need to have a lot of money to do that. You don't need to hire people. You can just, you can always, even if you're not a good photographer, find somebody who is, trade them some meat, do something, but super important.
We trade a lot. Like the way we develop, here's a secret. We find recipe developers that are really good food photographers, and we give them the meat, and we say, here's our budget.
Awesome.
and it's like it's a trade.
Yeah.
Some of the influencers, I don't pay any influencers, but they eat very well. So there's plenty of them out there. Like, I will trade. I will work for food. I have an MMA fighter who I've been feeding, and he's been fueling himself with our Bison for some time. He's like, I don't need money from you. I get money from lots of other companies, but just feed me.
That's awesome.
That's a great tip, Sean. Are those folks that you usually just find, like, through Instagram, like you're kind of just sniffing out who influencers or cool food people are, and then you're approaching them?
So our bandwidth is so low, I haven't been doing the approaching. It's inbound. It's people coming to me saying, hey, I really love what you're doing. Can we work together?
Cool.
Yes. Will you work for food? Yes. Okay, great. No. Okay. Sorry. I can't help. I'm too small. But that's another thing that's an advantage in this space. If you're producing good meat and you're on this call, people want what you have and need it. They want and need it. So use that to your leverage, because guess what? You're not going to be able to afford a $5,000 photo shoot. I can't afford it, but a lot of it, what it looks like on my stuff is $5,000 photo shoots. So actually some of it is when I needed a whole bunch of good stuff. So, but that's, I should say, you make a good point. I think is Tim maybe is talking. The way I started out with all the polish, the stuff didn't exist, and iPhones weren't awesome at taking photos. Now they are. So I'm kind of doing it the old way, or I've stopped. I don't spend that much money anymore. But it's like the way I did it isn't required anymore. In fact, it's almost like, hey, I need to look iPhone, not DSLR.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a very amateur photographer, but I love photography, and I'm always amazed at the quality of photos I can take with my iPhone.
Yep.
That also makes me think I would love to do a Lowdown webinar that's on how to do product photography with your cell phone. We come up with a great idea for a new Lowdown, every Lowdown. So
you get somebody to do that, and I'll trade them some of my meat if other people pitch in.
Ooh, there you go. I know Clay wants to drop a couple links in the chat. We have another Lowdown series coming up next month. All my dogs are coming to say goodbye as well. Coming up